You see, we never get an opportunity to actually uncover that because we are deflected at the very beginning by saying, how can I help you? Oh, I want to get a lower rate. Okay, got it. What's your rate? How else do you come back at that, right? Most of us will come back and say, well, what's your rate now? And we'll immediately pre-qualify them right from the very beginning without actually digging deeper. There's a reason why you'll close more deals if you start working on your skill of building rapport with these people. You see, I think that a lot of agents, and it's not, necessarily our fault, because we have a lot of things that we have to juggle. There's a lot of things that demand our time. We have to be very, very protective with our time because we understand that we're not here for the hourly. And our time is one of the most valuable resources that's going to determine the outcome of our pay. It's going to determine the outcome of our overall production. So I appreciate you guys being early. I want you guys to get in and have an opportunity to get settled in because obviously we have limited seats and we have lunch. So we're going to be catering lunch for you guys. And we didn't want to roll that out in the email because then people will come, go grab some lunch and then not even attend the meeting. So we got a couple minutes before we begin. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Daniel Niekart. I lead a team here in Isla, and I've been with the company for going on 6 years this December. And I originally started putting out sales training content as I was starting to build this channel called Sales Remastered. And for those of you who've seen the earlier shows, back when I was young and about 20 pounds lighter, I used to be very aggressive, right? I used to just go in there and just like curse and drop F-bombs almost every other word. So a lot of things have changed and it's developed into kind of what you see now. And don't worry, I'm not going to be cursing in this meeting. I'm going to keep it a little bit more pro, but I'm bringing it back. And the goal is really to do these, it's going to be first and third Wednesdays of every month. And what we're going to do is we're going to focus on certain aspects of our job function that can really help you kind of move the needle. And so sometimes your SM may suggest that you go in. Don't take it to offense. It doesn't mean that you're in trouble or anything. If anything, you should naturally want to do it. You shouldn't wait for your manager to tell you, hey, this is how to go make more money, because ultimately that's exactly why we're here, unless you're here for the benefits and that fat hourly wage, which I highly doubt. So going over some of these topics that we're going to cover, in the sales managers meetings every week, everything is measured, right? So KPIs, the amount of leads, everything is really broken down to make sure that the company as a whole is optimal. And in return, if you understand these criteria, I'm talking about KPIs, key performance indicators, and you understand how to work it to your advantage, you'll actually profit substantially just by understanding how they work, right? And what I mean by profit substantially is not just make money, but lessen the grind. Lessen the grind of you having to chase deals, having to chase prospects, getting burnt, getting shopped. And there's a lot of things that we can't necessarily control, but within these meetings and these presentations, what I hope to do is share with you some of the experience that I've had, the knowledge and the key concepts that I practice, along with the agents who are on my team. And these are top producers, not only on my team, but throughout the course of my career. And I've been doing this since 2001. I was just telling Daniel's like, damn, 2001. Some of y'all weren't even born in 2001, which is real scary. But really I want to cover in this first round, this first meeting, the topic was how to increase your close ratio. And let's kind of take a step back and really identify what actually kills your close ratio. Where does the sale actually occur and how does it happen? Now, besides rate table leads like, Credit Karma or NerdWallet, those in my opinion are laydowns, right? Because they saw something online, they call you just to get it. That's a laydown, that's not a sale. And that in itself should naturally have a very, very high close ratio. You shouldn't be able to lose that, if anything, like, damn, I couldn't sell them, because they already sold themselves. What I'm talking about is your traditional sale, whether you're taking a warm transfer from an inbound lead, or you're doing follow-up calls, or you're doing your own cold calls. So this is what I'm talking about as far as increase the efficiency of your own personal close ratio. And one of the primary reasons why I believe loan officers, and I was guilty of this too, was losing sales, is because of how we interact with our leads. So in this market, it's cyclical. You're going to have ups and downs, right? Market's going to be able to deliver you a high amount of traffic. For those of you who were licensed in originating loans just in December of last year, we remember how slow it was. Even all the way up into January and February is because the market rates were high. And so what this caused was less traffic, and we're kind of fighting for leads. Now it's changed like night and day, because now we have this influx of traffic where we have so many calls, we can kind of get this false understanding that, well, if I don't sell this one, I got 19 more that I'm going to connect with anyway, right? And it's twofold. So number one is an agent can lessen their or completely hurt their close ratio by being too comfortable. So in other words, you may have made more money than you have ever made in your career, or maybe in the last couple years, just in the last couple months, and so you've become comfortable. And what does that mean? What that means is you get too quick on your initial contacts and people who you engage with. So your conversations are very straight to the point. You're trying to find out whether or not you should even continue with that phone conversation, because you are busy. You have 10 other fires to put out. You have 19 callbacks to do. You have a restructure. You got to take your lunch. You have so many different things, right? And how we typically as human beings, how we prioritize our time is we try to, we look at the basic need of it all. And so if we just close, like let's use September for example, if we just close a fat month and we got a fat check coming, we're probably not going to be as hungry and aggressive for that deal as if we didn't, right? So there's some mental hacks that I think we could take away from this presentation. And in all reality, it's not necessarily the practice that drives the results. It's our perception of the results that actually drive the practice. So it's kind of reverse. So where my team differs from, I think, from everyone else is we operate on a scoreboard system. And so every single day we have a daily objective goal, a daily goal. And it rewinds every single day. And I think that allows us to remind ourselves that whatever success we had in the past or whatever failures we had the day before, it doesn't matter, because today is a new day. And why I think this is important is because I think your goal is the same as well, is to hit these top tiers, is to fund 15 plus per month. It's to make 25, 30, 40, 50K per month. I think that is the ultimate result, but it comes down to the best practice. And so I'm going to talk to you guys about the best practice. This primary practice is talk time. It's our initial engagement with the prospect and how we actually maneuver through the conversation. Because like I said, the primary reason why you see agents who have a high amount of inbound leads, like when Ray was going through the criteria of inbounds, talk time, locks, right? What you'll notice is that some of us may have a high amount of inbound leads or a high amount of intake, but the amount converted to locks is very low. The common characteristic with those agents is that their talk time is low as well. And so what this means is it's a flag that you might just be rushing through your conversations and going straight to the point. So for an example, if you notice your conversation sounds anything like this, you're guilty of it. And it's not to put you on the spotlight. It's not to say that you're a horrible agent or you're a horrible LO. If anything, it's really to open your eyes so you can make these small adjustments so you can, again, improve your close ratio. So whether you're a purchase agent or refinance agent, if your conversation sounds something like this, like, hey Jim, this is Daniel, thanks for holding. I appreciate you giving us a call today. It's an amazing day at New American Funding. How can I help you today? And Jim, of course, is going to say what? I want a lower rate, right? I want a lower payment. What's your fees? What's your cost? And what happens at that point is we typically respond back and say, okay, well, what's your rate? Because that then determines whether or not we can help them. And so in most cases, let's say if Jim said I got a 3.75% rate, most agents will decide at that point of how much hustle they're going to put towards that lead. Make sense? So if Jim says, hey, I got 3.7% interest and I want a lower rate, what we typically do is remember what we saw on the rate sheet, or remember what we just saw when we priced up a deal about 10 minutes ago. So man, we're about 4.25 right now, and it completely changes our demeanor. But there are a few things that we miss that are ultimately reasons why we're leaving money on the table. Like, we don't know if that 3.7. Hey, can you guys put your phone on mute, please? Appreciate that. So we don't know if that 3.75% is a mortgage, is an FHA, or if they have mortgage insurance. And so let's say that they have mortgage insurance of 0.8%. That 3.75 is what, 4.6? Does that make sense? It's about 4.65. Because we don't go into it that way, to dig a little bit deeper. Now, there's a script that I use, and then I share. It's for free. If you guys aren't using it, I know a few of the newer agents are using it. A couple of the agents that are using it. The top producer is going to be a guest speaker in this meeting in a couple minutes. Uses it, and the reason why is because it gives you full control of the conversation. I believe the reason why we cut our calls short is because we don't know any different. Every conversation that we have, engagement that we have with a prospect, there is this roadmap that you actually have to go through. And the roadmap can only be really completed and followed if you're aware of what you need to do within this conversation. So I think that 99% of us making that mistake that I just talked about of quick, short call time or talk times is simply because we don't know what to say. We don't know any better. And I think that the primary mistake that occurs is the second you ask them, how can you help them? And I know it sounds weird. You're like, well, D, what else am I supposed to say? And that's my point exactly. Because we think that there's no other way to start the conversation besides saying, how can I help you today? Right? Like, what made you give us a call today? The reason why that's a mistake is because you're giving them the microphone. You're giving them control of the conversation. When us as salesmen, I don't even want to call us salesmen, because your perception should be you are a subject matter expert. So when we go to a doctor, when we go to an attorney, when we go to a CPA, they drive the conversation, right? They're the ones in charge. You have to look at yourself that way. Because if you're looking at yourself like a servant, like a server, like, hey, how can I help you today? Like you work at McDonald's, you're going to be treated as such. They're going to ask you, like, hey, man, you got this on the menu? No, I don't got that on the menu. Oh, damn. All right, well, I guess I'll go over here to Loan Depot, see if they got it on the menu. Does that make sense? That demeanor sets up the entire theme and mood of your engagement. So instead, what a consultant would do, or a subject matter expert would do, is greet the caller and completely control it. They drive the conversation. So if you'll notice that, and if you haven't already, first off, add Sales Remastered on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram if you haven't already, and look at the bio. Like there's a link in my bio that goes to my website, salesremastered.com, and you can request a copy of the sales script. Use your personal email address, the one on your cell phone, because NAF will quarantine it. You'll never get it. It actually gets spit back as spam. And the reason why you want it is because that way it's just a push of away on your button. But I give you both an inbound and outbound script that's very highly effective, and there's nothing on there that says, how can I help you? There's nothing on there that says, well, what brought you in today? Because we already know. They didn't come in to get an oil change, right? They didn't come in just to check the weather. They came in there for a specific need. So purchase, their specific need is that they need financing to acquire the home. Refi, you already know that they have a pain. They need cash flow. Right? But how they actually converse it, or how they say it, is, well, I don't want any fees, and I want your lowest rate. That's a defense mechanism. That's all they know how to say, and typically they'll say that if we ask what? How can I help you today? Right? And that in itself kind of changes the course. So let's talk about the roadmap. I did a video and a meeting with a couple of the junior CSRs, or the junior LOs, about a couple weeks ago, and it talked about the Midas touch. Right? For those of you who didn't get a chance to read the email or even see the video, Midas Touch is an acronym, Midas, M-I-D-A-S. And every conversation, our focus should be based on achieving, or at least acquiring, those pieces, those structures, and in that order. Good news is the very first one, M, is already done for you. And this is where we are privileged to be working for an organization like NAF because we're delivered the leads. So M stands for marketing. Marketing is what brought you the lead to begin with. And again, this is separate to, your NerdWallet, your Credit Karma leads. Those are laydowns. I'm talking about everything else in between. So marketing is already done for you through the CSRs, but you can also market. And your marketing is going to be based on outbound dials or follow-up calls. Now, what's odd is that a lot of us don't like to do outbound calls, but it's actually probably the most lowest hanging fruit because those people you're contacting aren't necessarily in the market. They didn't just hit submit and got 19 other lenders talking to them. So be open-minded to the concept of marketing. But the second letter is I. I is you're trying to find their interest. And when you hear their interest of saying, hey, I just want a lower rate and I don't want no fees, we have to change the way we hear it. What they're actually saying to you, they just don't know how to say it, is I need to create cash flow. I need to create savings. Now, their interest is actually deeper than that. So when you peel back the layer of the onion, the interest is not to just lower the rate. The interest is to create cash flow as a solution to remedy a specific pain or a goal or desire, right? And so let's say their interest was to lower their rates. You want to agree. You say, perfect. That's what we do here. Now, can I confirm, what would you do with the savings? Because when you find out what their interest is, then you can confirm what their ultimate desire is. Because they are interested to lower their rate to create payment savings, but their ultimate desire is that they need the savings to pay off debt. Or they need the savings to maybe offset the loss of income that the wife has gone through, or no overtime. Make sense? Or afford daycare, or afford tuition, or afford the bills and expenses. That's the ultimate desire. You see, we never get an opportunity to actually uncover that because we are deflected at the very beginning by saying, how can I help you? Oh, I want to get a lower rate. Okay, got it. What's your rate? How else do you come back at that, right? Most of us will come back and say, well, what's your rate now? And we'll immediately pre-qualify them right from the very beginning without actually digging deeper. There's a reason why you'll close more deals if you start working on your skill of building rapport with these people. You see, I think that a lot of agents, and it's not, necessarily our fault because we have a lot of things that we have to juggle. There's a lot of things that demand our time. We have to be very, very protective with our time because we understand that we're not here for the hourly. And our time is one of the most valuable resources that's going to determine the outcome of our pay. It's going to determine the outcome of our overall production. And so what we think is we're making smart moves, we just kind of got to take a step back and realize that cutting that call short doesn't necessarily mean you're doing a good thing, because if you're cutting the call short to go chase Mr. Patel, who hasn't answered 19 of your voice messages, right, hasn't called you back after 8 emails, really decipher and kind of weigh that out and say, what am I trying to free up my time for, right? And oftentimes what we do is we try to free up time because we're going back to restructure deals, or we're going back to fix things that could have been done properly right up from the very beginning, such as buttoning up your files, making sure the income worked, right? These are things, ingredients that actually make the loan. You guys making sense so far? Okay. So Midas, again, marketing, intent, desire, and then A is for action, right? Because after you find their ultimate intent and what they desire to truly do, then you have enough leverage to influence action. And mind you, nothing in this conversation at all is going to be geared around pricing. Your very first phone conversation should never be pricing a deal, quoting interest rate, right? You have to really develop rapport and set the theme of that conversation to be all about how you could serve a remedy for them, how you can help them. It's not about like, okay, well, I got a 3.5%, but you might have to pay lender fees within 5 minutes of talking to this guy or this girl, because that you're not giving yourself you're not putting yourself in the proper position to effectively close that person. The way to make a prospect stick with you and choose you to hire you, because that's ultimately what we're doing, is we're candidates for the job, right? So when they do an online inquiry or they're looking to hire a mortgage company, ultimately what they're doing is they're interviewing loan officers, right? And we're kind of like in a job interview. And so in order to really get that job and be the one who's chosen, is you have to speak to their exact needs. You have to actually be the one that hears them out. And it's really the difference between saying, okay, hey, I can lower your payment and give you this term, like this fixed product or this interest rate, versus saying, hey, you know what, Jim, what I could do is I can help offset your monthly payment to where I can create savings so you could pay off the credit cards that you said you and Susie are having a tough time in paying off. I can help offset the income that you said you lost because your wife's pregnant and on maternity leave. You see, these are the details that are underlying reasons as to why they need your service. But if you're not giving yourself an opportunity to at least extract that information, you don't have the leverage to properly close that person, because you don't even know what their true desires are, right? So how do I make them act with urgency? How do I make them act with full commitment and loyalty towards me if I'm just giving very vague and general information that doesn't capture their emotion behind it? Got it? So action, and when I'm talking about action is, you know, when you get to a point in the conversation where you're influencing them to act on the information you're giving them. So what does that mean? So like, you know, most times in our first conversation, when we get to a point where we identify their need and we know that they want cash out or we know that they want a lower interest rate, what we do is we pitch the deal and then ask for them to act upon it. If we actually go in reverse, so in other words, we identify the need, we identify the desire, we let them know how to act upon it, and then actually go over the figures after they've done so. So again, I'm gonna break that down. When I pitch a deal, and a lot of top producers do this, they don't set up their pitch call as saying, hey, I'm gonna go and put some options together, I'll call you back in 30 minutes. Because that's not positioning. What they do is they actually recap all the information that they gathered. This is where the emotion comes in. So in saying, hey Jim, you know, based on our conversation, I understand that you need to create monthly savings so that you can do A, B, and C. You'd mentioned to me that you are very interested in doing A, B, and C. And again, the A, B, and C is going to be based on that conversation. So you need to pay off debt. You need to increase your 401k. You need to position yourself to retire in 5 years like you wanted to. This is the nuts and bolts that we need to extract in the conversation. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you actually increase your talk time. You have to get them to talk to you about why they need what they need, and avoid trying to pre-qual them and find reasons why they're not going to buy. Instead, find reasons of what will happen if they don't buy. Does that make sense? That's a huge difference. Because when we go through a market where there's an influx of leads, the habits that you develop right now are going to help you survive for when the market changes. And so when the market changes and there's not that much leads coming in, you want to be efficient enough where you're closing as much as you engage with. And that's how your income doesn't change. If anything, you're going to prevail while other agents are dropping out of the market and going, you know, some other line of profession. But I guess what I'm getting at is, you know, when you increase your talk time and you understand that really what it's about is to really get rapport, extract the exact reasons why they feel an emotional kind of an attachment to the results that you're giving, only at that time can you really influence them to take particular action and actually buy from you. Because if you're just spitting out numbers, they're not necessarily going to feel those numbers unless they understand how it applies to them. Got it? So that's why the reframing comes into play. But one thing that I use, and I'll give you guys a tip, is I use my e-consent as a way to set up my second call. So I'm different. I don't ask for their consent right away. And I use the consent tool as a way to get both decision makers on the phone. Because when I ask for them to give consent, I let them know that I need them to do it from a home computer or a tablet at home. And that allows me to ask a question: when will your wife or when will your spouse be at home to also give consent so I could release these disclosures? That makes sense? So I'm not saying, hey, give me 30 minutes to work up these numbers and I'll call you back, because if I called him back in 30 minutes, he could very well still be at work. He could very well still be in a busy point of his day, and he's not going to give me his full attention where he's in a position to take action after I've just framed up that sale, right? So sales is very much like chess, and you really have to identify, what position you have before you show your cards. Because if you're spitting out numbers and they don't like you, the chances of them talking over with their spouse or really digesting the information are slim to none. You're going to be forgotten about by the time they hang up that phone. But if you position yourself properly and you frame the sale correctly, and they have an emotional desire that, or at least understanding that you understand how they're going to use your service to achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve, depending on the situation, buying or refinancing. At that point, that's when you have enough leverage for them to actually stick with you. That's what creates the glue. But the only way you can't create that glue, you can't create that bond if your conversations are quick. You can't do a lot of that if you're hanging up within the first 5 minutes because you quickly identified that they are asking for an interest rate that's not available today. A lot of the top producers and converters are actually selling interest rates that are higher than what they have today. Right? There's a lot of transactions that are taking place right now where the rates and the payments are higher than what they initially have. But it's the result that allows the prospect and the lead to actually achieve a specific need. And so that's really what this call is about, or like this meeting is about, is I want you guys to pay attention to that. The way to increase your overall close ratio is just understanding what you're trying to do in the first phone conversation. And what you're trying to do is not see if you have a lower rate than what they have. You guys, don't let that blind you, right? What you're trying to see is how your services can positively impact their life, how you can change their life for the better, how you can bring benefit and you can bring service. Got it? Cool. Any questions? All right. So I got a guest speaker. This gentleman's been on my team, actually with NAF altogether for a total of 6 months, I think 7 months, and already has kind of climbed the ladder to be within the top 20% of 250 agents. And this top producer not only uses the script, but he has his own particular flow within the conversation that I think that you guys can relate on, because I'm just the manager, right? I'm just that one dude who does videos or whatever. Like, you can only take my credit for so much besides, yeah, you're a manager, you get lay down leads, right? so I'm gonna bring on one of your own colleagues, and he's gonna tell you his own spin on the initial conversation. And I really invite you guys to please ask questions, because this is your time to really dig and kind of pick the brain of someone who has a high conversion ratio. All right, so I appreciate his taking the time. His name is Jay Dow. Jay, if you can please come up.
Yeah. Jay Wow. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah,
thank you.
Right. There you go.
Do I get credit for this?
You do.
All right, hustle.
You need royalties.
Hey, what's up, guys? Happy to be here and packed room. Awesome. I was asked by Dan here to just kind of give my spin on how I take a call and the call flow and the process, and what goes through my mind when I'm speaking to a customer. So feel free to ask away and ask questions and such. But a couple of points here that I was asked to bring up here is best practice, right? Customers are always going to ask or always going to want to know the rate. Rate's not a benefit, guys. It's a feature of a loan. The benefit is how you're going to change their home financial outlook, right? What's the benefit? Monthly payment savings, alleviating credit card payments, paying off that high student loan debt, whatever the case is. The rate, it's not going to matter. Quarter point up or down is going to affect them, what, $10, $15? So just a couple of things there to keep in mind. But starting off, always want to disarm the customer. They call in with their guard up, right? all the time.
How do you disarm them?
A couple of different ways. First of all, what you have in your script's great, right? I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions to see if I can even help you.
Can you give us an example of what that sounds like?
So, hi, Paul. This is Jay here with New American Funding. Thanks for taking the call, or thanks for calling, or however you connected with us, right?
Yeah.
I've been assigned here to assist you with the information that you're looking for, that you asked me for.
Okay.
All right. But before I do so, let me first make sure that I can even help you. Sometimes you're in the best loan possible. And if that's the case, I'll let you know up front, save you a bunch of time.
Sure.
Okay, great. So now, at least I know he's not trying to sell me too hard, right?
Yep.
And then kind of go into, I like our property profile. You guys all use it here?
Yes.
So it tells us a lot, right? Tells us, number one, if they bought their house 4 months ago, we can't help them. Tells us how often they refinance. Do they strip equity? Do they increase their loan balance every 2-3 years? Gives us all that info to kind of sell. So
One of the key things, I don't mean to interrupt, one of the key reasons why the property profile also serves as a helpful tool is because you're actually naming things that they already know. And so you position yourself as the authority. So you say, hey, Paul, looks like you and Kim have owned this house since 1992, right? Looks like the last time both you guys refinanced was with Chase 3 years ago. This is things that immediately position you. People do things for the ease, right? It's kind of like that autofill when you're buying something online. It auto-populates your info. Isn't that nice? Like, oh, man, it makes it easy.
So I've worked with Jay for quite some time. How long have you been in the business now?
I'm old, 17, 18 years?
17, 18
Yeah.
years, right? And your skin still looks that good, but
Avino.
you've been doing what you've been doing, right? And you've been with this company now going on about a year.
Yeah, almost.
Nah, not even
Right?
that.
Not even
7
that,
months.
right? But within 3 months, 4 months, boom, you got it. Now, I remember us talking, and you're like, dude, Daniel's the shit, right?
He really is.
He really
Yeah.
is. But think about it. From what you've been doing this whole time, I saw you switch. What did you see with what he, implemented that you have actually added now?
Well, I'm a firm believer in spinning things. I'll spin anything as long as it makes us look good and it sounds good to the customer, right? And then so, for an example, with the whole FHA streamline thing, that's genius, right? And it's genius how we spin it to where, hey, we're a direct lender to FHA. We're here just to help. Automatically lower your rate. You're entitled to a lower rate. And you say things like that and you spin it as opposed to, hey, we can refinance, streamline your loan and lower yourself 0.5%. I mean, there's two different things and it's two different ways of communicating it. But, we're in sales, right? Everything really is a spin at the end of the day. So I picked up a lot from that and especially the intro with the whole open-ended question with, see if I can even help you. That helps a lot. That really helps a ton. Call script, call flow, all helps. And you asked me, when do I transition to selling? I feel like the whole call is a sale. That intro's a sale. Going through their property profile, and because only one name's on the application when it comes through to us, right? But when we pull up the property profile, it'll have the spouse on there. So instead of saying Dan and Mrs., when you just say that to them, it just builds rapport right away. Like, this guy knows what he's doing, this guy has the tools, and this guy knows about me already. So a customer never wants to go through an interview, right? I mean, who here goes home and wants to take a phone call and answer questions? No one really. So when someone on the other line comes across that way, it just helps the conversation a lot more.
So what kind of mindset did you go from coming into the company to where you're at right now?
What do you mean?
Like, as far as the way you've been doing business, I mean, did you feel like you're just, approaching it a certain way, but now you're seeing it in a different way? Like, if you had to put into a feeling of how you were before versus now?
That's not something I really ever thought about in that sense. I mean, I always try to take whatever's available and make it work or tweak it to work. If it's not working one way, I'm going to figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah.
Because every place is going to have the ideal way of doing things. And it's just kind of up to us to make that work with our personality and our sales style, if you will. But
I think another thing to also take from Jay is the work ethic. There's a lot of agents on our floor that have very strong work ethic, but I think that it's action mixed with the quality of the action. He's actually performing tasks that move the needle rather than performing a lot of tasks to just maintain. Right? So we sometimes do a lot of tasks to just maintain, and we think we're busy, but we're never really moving the needle. So you could put in 12-hour days, but how many of those minutes actually moved you closer to achieving the ultimate goal? And so the quality of work, obviously he's disciplined, you can tell by his physique, right? So his discipline, he has discipline to make sure he's holding himself accountable. And so I rarely see this guy take lunch. I'm not saying you guys don't take lunch, but you don't ever see him play ping pong, right? You don't ever see him kind of chatting around. He's always walking around. He's always on the phone. He's always taking action. And the reason why I wanted to call him in is because I want you guys to know that even if you've been here for a long time or you're new or what have you, there's a specific science and a cycle that you just need to implement. And what he's talking about, twisted, is what he's talking about is you're controlling the perception that the prospect has in dealing with you. And the reason why it works with him is because he sounds different than the agents at Loan Depot. He sounds different from the agent from Quicken or Mr. Cooper, who's saying the traditional things like, hey, I can lower your payment, let's see what rate I can give you. You never hear him talk about pricing. But there's one interesting thing that he does when he's going through the conversation is you do strategic holds, right?
Yeah,
you actually put them on hold. And do you guys know that when you put them on hold, you hear the branding of NAF? Right? So that's key, because while they're waiting to see with the suspense, you have the hold song branding you automatically. So it's actually planting seeds like New American Funding is awesome. You should choose Jay. You could bench press 250, no problem. Things like that. And I think he knows that. But can you go in about that? Like what?
Yeah.
Strategy?
So with the whole idea of the whole thing is human nature, right? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if it's easy or if I can have it easily, I don't want it. It's got to be difficult to achieve. It's got to cost a lot. It's got to be, it's got to be difficult to obtain, because if Dan can get it, I don't want it. If Paul can get it, I don't want it. I want something that's hard to get. Well, putting a customer on hold at the right time creates that illusion, right? Oh, you don't want to pay for an appraisal. You don't want to clean your house? Great. Well, we're a direct lender to Fannie Mae. We're a direct lender to Freddie Mac. They don't know what that means. They don't care. But, explaining it to them where, you know what, I have a direct channel in line to see if I can maybe perhaps get an appraisal waiver. Let me put you on hold.
What he does is that he takes that away and kind of makes it appear exclusive to us, right? So if you get a PIW, you have two choices. One, you could say, hey, I got a property inspection waiver. It looks like we don't need an appraisal. Or you could spin it off, like he said, and say, hey, due to our relationship with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, we don't even need an appraisal on your home. That's our bond with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Now it's exclusive to you. Get it? Now they think that, oh, well, Loan Depot probably couldn't do that. Cooper probably couldn't do that. And that makes it tiable to Jay.
It goes with pricing. It goes with credit pulls. All of those things. In terms of, because a customer shouldn't feel like anyone can give them a loan in 5 minutes of talking to them. What's your rate? What's your fees?
Yep.
We all get that, right? And if we just pull it out and show them right away, that really takes away from our value. And so we just become another order taker, just like the guy at Loan Depot or Cooper is, right? And then they start pressuring and hounding you. I don't pressure my customers. I never pressure my customers. I make my customers ask for the business.
You get a tone when you speak, as Anthony, Sakati, and Jay, they sit right next to each other. And if you ever get a chance to hear them, when someone calls in or you hear them on the phone, they don't sound like a salesman. They sound like someone who's an expert, right? Like you're the accountant that you just called to get some advice. And Sakati is actually in the back of the room, Mr. 27 funded for the month.
Number one.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like this man just funded 27 units, the highest rev, the highest paid, the highest producing, and he's sitting in here right now practicing his craft, right? But what you'll find when you look around, or some agents aren't here, and they didn't even take the time to practice their craft. And those are the same agents that are struggling. So always continue to practice your craft. Take these opportunities, again, first and third Wednesday that we host these, come in and really sharpen your blade, because depending on how sharp your blade is going to depend on how well you hunt, right? And I'll have more guest speakers who really know how to hunt and really know how to kind of make this game work. But going back to your strategy, you know, putting them on hold for certain things, like let me see if I can get around that appraisal. Let me check is key. Or you know what, let me check with my manager to see if I can get that exception. He already knows, because while he was talking, he's pricing the deal with me, right? And I can tell, and I'm looking over on him, I'm all, is he still talking to him? He's still he's pricing the deal with me. So he's been taking multiple actions. But he doesn't say like, hey, I can get you this rate or this pricing. He plays hard to get. So even though he knows, he'll still put him on hold and say, all right, you know what? I think we can help. I have an idea. Let me check with my manager. Hold on. Puts him on hold, and then this guy's walking around. He's chit-chatting. And I'm like, bro, weren't you on the phone? He's like, yeah, they're on hold. I'm like, what the? Because it's all it's all the psychology of it, right? He's building the anticipation. And it's funny because then he'll hit off hold, and he's right back into it. Hey, guess what? Good news. Right? Like he never skipped a beat. And I could just sense that these callers are like, what's the good news? I can get that, but I'm gonna need your documents in 24 hours. And what happens? Elevates right away. Super quick. Right? You wanna add to that?
One note though, before I forget, guys, I'm not saying it's the end all, but we work hard to get these deals in, and they fall out all the time. You know, other lenders will get a customer and I'll snake them all day long. One way to get around that is reviewing disclosures with customers, making sure that they live, because you know, it's one thing to tell them, yeah, your lender fees are $16.29, third party fees are $2,000, escrow is $4,000, but that's your money, and then when they see it all, it says $10,000. Well, Jay lied to me, right? All they see is $10,000 on the disclosures. And if we can't walk them through it line by line, they're not going to do it themselves. And so when you walk them through that, I'll say things like, hey, remember we spoke about this. This is your lender fees. Everything I promised you, right? Is it everything we spoke about? Great. Sign them, and then I'll authorize for your lock to be released. So everything's a spin, right? Because they're going to see on the disclosure, it says not locked. When we send out disclosures, they'll say not locked. Well, why isn't it locked, Jay? Well, you have to authorize these disclosures. As soon as you do, I'll release the lock. So going over disclosures like that, I can guarantee you 10% of loan officers do that in the nation. No one does it. I don't hear loan officers do it, but chances are when my loan comes in, it either falls out due to low value or a title issue. It will never be because of fees or costs, because customers always knew that up front. So that's one thing that I would definitely advise people to start doing more. If you're not, it just helps to close at the end a lot more. And you don't have to deal with the middle part of the customer doubting you.
So this is coming from someone on the third, I think it was your third month that you funded like 24 units or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so third month coming in. Completely, like obviously NAF has a cycle, and you'll see that agent sometimes takes 3, 6, 9 months, even a year, and they'll never come close to hitting 20 units. And so the pieces that you're picking up from him right now, he's giving you the keys to the kingdom. He's saying, hey, do this, and then you'll increase your close ratio, but you'll make them stick. Now you guys are gonna have a choice of whether or not you choose to implement it or decide, that doesn't work for me though. You know, I get too much anxiety. You're making that decision not to implement that. If it works for this dude, best believe I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna try to do it even better, right? If anything, I'm gonna hit him up and be like, hey, yo, Jay, what do you do here and there? Because sometimes we don't want to ask questions in public, right? It's like a sign of weakness or whatever. but some of us do. They'll be open-minded and you know, put out their 2 cents. So Anthony, is there anything that you could add to it? Like anything that you could add?
You know what, honestly, and I think I spoke to the last junior class, I was with the fun one called in. You gotta have fun with it. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a game. You're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some. You're gonna actually lose more than you're gonna win. And it's what you do when you lose and picking yourself back up to get that win. And it could be that last holiday. You have a horrible day, and you're like getting off every call. There's no financial benefit. That last holiday, and you walk out going, "That's why I'm doing it." So that's what it's all about. It's exactly what they're talking about, but at the same time, it's the mindset and staying level, not going too high, too low, and just stick with it. It works itself out.
And this is where the scoring system comes into play. You know, you could ask these guys or anyone on my team. We have a scoring system. So if your team isn't doing it, be the one to take the lead and say, "Hey, let's do a scoring system," because that creates the camaraderie and the trash talking. So like Anthony and Jay and KG, these are the top 3 of my team. They're always talking trash to each other. Like, man, you only got 2 points today. Like, I guess I got 6, but whatever. And so they're constantly reminded of where they stand, and they get a fresh start at the very beginning. And so I think that not only pushes you, but like Anthony said, you got to make it into a game, because otherwise, if you look at it as a grind or a tough job to do, oh, I got to do all this, I got to do all that, you're going to find reasons to hate it. But if you turn it into a game, you'll find reasons to actually score and win, right? You'll find the motive to actually win. And so one thing that I want to touch on, you know, I do mentoring with agents all across the nation. And I had a mentoring call this morning where the agent was like, "Hey D, you know, I took the course. I increased my close ratio. I'm like one of the top 20 LOs in the entire company now. I work for a huge company." He's like, "I paid off all my family debt. You know, I'm killing it." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what are we going to talk about then, bro?" He's all, "What we need to talk about is, you know, motivation." And he's all, "Because I already hit the milestone. I already got debt free. I already made my 30 grand per month. I'm already there. I'm doing it." He's all, "But I need motivation to continuously do the right habits." He went on to share with me, he said, "Now it's like when I get an objection, like I don't want to pull my credit, he doesn't even want to go through the rebuttal. Even though he knows the way to get around it, he doesn't even bother," right? And that, I think that is something that affects all of us, because we're kind of taking a seat back and be like, "You know what? I just funded 15 last month. You know what? I just made 30 grand last month. Whatever, I'm better than you." Well, my advice to him was that he needs to constantly change his milestones. He needs to constantly change his goals. Yeah, you're debt free, but you got 6 months of complete living in your bank, liquid. Do you have 12 months in your bank liquid? How many of us have 1 month in our bank liquid, right? Usually we spend it up before we even get that money. And the point is that you got to continuously challenge yourself and remind yourself why you do what you do. Whether you got kids or you got no kids. The bottom line is that there's a reason why you chose this profession over everything else, is because there's an opportunity to capture more income. The hell are you going to do with that income, right? Besides go buy Gucci flip-flops like Jay.
No, these are not it. These are not it.
But you have to have milestones. You need to continuously push yourself. And my end piece of advice to him was just to remind you to understand his why. And so he happens to have kids. He happens to have responsibilities. And even though you hit a specific milestone, you got to continuously push yourself. So one thing that I told him to do is on your desk, you know, put a picture of his family, put a picture of his kids, and look at it. So anytime he ever feels lazy, look at that picture. Remember why you're really doing it. It's not you. It's not your quota. And then put 2 sticky notes. One sticky note is the hourly wage times 8, right? That's how much you would make if you made no sales today. And then the base salary with no sales, no commission for the month. Put that right under it. And that's one sticky note. The second sticky note is if you hit your goal, how much you'll make on average per hour and for the month. So one side says like $400 for the day, right? $2,800 for the month. And then the other side says $3,000 per hour and $35,000. And so when you get lackadaisical and you get like, man, I don't want to go through this, I want you to look at those 2 post-it notes and say, which one do you want to make, bro? You want to make $300? You want to make $3,000? And now kick your ass right into gear. First curse word. I mean, I'm not. But I want you guys to really take that away, okay? So continue to push yourself. I invite you guys to continue coming to these sessions, because if you learn and grow together, I mean, it becomes very easy and it becomes a game. You're gonna notice results come back a little bit more favorably. Now, thank you very much, Jay, for attending and sharing us the goal. Do any of you guys have any questions for Jay, myself, or Anthony? Yes.
What's the S in Midas?
Oh, serve. So you got marketing, intent, desire, action, and serve. When my mentor told me, it was actually selling. So serve is when you get them into a position where you have enough leverage to make them act. You serve it, you don't sell it. Sell it is saying, I got option number one, would you like that? You know, or would you like to lock this? Can you put them on mute? Okay, yeah. Or, you know, so which one would you want? That's not serving. You're actually asking, you're offering. Serving is the final component and saying, okay, great, so let's go ahead and put this into play. This is what we're gonna do. That's serving. You're basically opening the door to the car, you're giving them the keys, and you're making them sit down, right? You're not saying, all right, well, do you want to drive it? No, you're making it easy. You're mapping it out for them. And that's what I meant by serving. So notice you have to do all those components first before you even get to serving. The problem is that most LOs go straight to selling. Before they get the intent, before they get the desire, before they get the leverage to take action, they'll try to serve a price or sell a price right at the very beginning, missing all the other components. And that's the reason why talk time is very important, because you can't capture those other components with small talk time, right? You need to finesse these borrowers. And in the very least, even if you know they don't qualify, use them for practice, right? Literally practice, spar with them. Have fun with it, right? And then you'll be sharper in going into the next one.
That's one thing I learned. There's, I'm sure many of you guys have had 3, 4, 5 months in a row where you're killing it. 15, 20 grand, 15, 20 grand. And then all of a sudden it just nosedives, right? You gotta treat the next customer the same way you treat the very first one, because that's how you got your sale. There's no shortcuts. So just kind of keep that in mind. You guys are gonna start killing it. Just remember to keep serving the customer the exact same way, because that's how you're gonna get that next sale, to have that next killer month. Because I've done it. I've done it where I thought I could have shortcuts because I'm the shit. It doesn't work that way. Treat every customer the exact same. I mean, I'm sure you've been through that too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is a demise for everyone. You get comfortable. You know, you try to hurry up and rush it through. You're like, man, I'm flawless. I'm untouchable. And then reality smacks you in your ass when you made $800 for the month. I'm like, oh, damn. Right? Yeah, what's up?
It sounds like you have like a whole setup on those initial conversations. It seems like pretty much almost everything's done like right off of that initial day. How often are you interacting with that client throughout the process, especially now that maybe we're seeing longer turn times and stuff like that?
Do you mean
also like at the end?
Do you mean chasing a prospect or already?
No, someone in process that's committed to you, and so that there's like to secure that there's no fallout, or just that it's maybe a future client can get you referrals and stuff like that.
So Dan gave me a tip on that. And I spin everything, right? So then, you know, Dan will attest to that. But instead of saying, hey, the industry's backed up right now, you know, everyone's busy, processors don't have time to talk to you, don't worry, it'll be 14 days. Or the way I spin it is, hey, you know what? You might have noticed I kept you on the phone for 2 hours. I asked you for all these things. I did the disclosure. The reason why is because I'm the best loan officer out there. I'm thorough. I get everything up front. Your file's ready to go straight to underwriting. Processor's not even going to need to reach out to you because I did my job for you so good. So it's not uncommon that you won't hear from them for 2 weeks. Not because we can't get a processor, but because I did my job for you great. And so it went straight to underwriting. So you'll hear from him in about 2 weeks, but in the meantime, your man Jay's always here. Pick up the phone, give me a call, and I'll be here to help. But I don't follow up with them really. And for the most part, they're good with that.
Cool. Thanks. Cool.
So it sounds like you're setting up a lot of one-call closes.
A lot of mine are. It's just because the way I'm used to doing it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll take the second and third call. There's a lot of those. But if there's a benefit, I'll hold on to them and I'll go for the kill.
Are you getting around not being able to send your own disclosures for a one-call close?
Well, one call close doesn't necessarily mean you have to elevate it. Right? A one call close is basically in one call you get the customer to say, how do we move forward? What do I need to do to proceed? Like a one call doesn't have to be a milestone in Encompass. It could just be them sending you this, the documents you asked for, or doing a e-consent and sending you something that they have. You know, that would be considered, in my opinion, that's considered a one call close. I hope that answered your question.
How do you avoid being shopped around? And I know this was asked earlier, but how do you know when to either give them the most benefit or know to walk away? Or if they constantly keep coming back to you like, oh, Chase and this thing, give me exactly what you did. And I asked like, okay, well, what can I do to earn your business? I ran the NAV, I did everything I could. But at that point, he's like, I want the most savings. He's like, I can get you that. I can match you that. But
Okay, that's
you're
perfect.
gonna have to do different ones.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So I use this a lot. Sometimes I forget it as well, but I use it a lot. I'm like, okay, great. So you're looking for a 0.25% lower in rate, right? Okay, so let's go back. Let me understand this. We're saving you $250 a month, right? But you want a 0.25% lower rate. I want to give you a 0.25% lower rate. That's what you're shopping for. You're going to spend the next month doing that. In that whole month that you did that, you just foregone $250 to try to save an additional $12. If that's your goal and that's how you want to proceed with that, just let me know if I can be of assistance, cut your loss and let it go. But for the most part, when you smack them with that, it kind of changes the tone a little bit. And then of course you come back and you say, hey, but I'll get you the best deal. What's the best you got out there? So you give them the best of both worlds. Okay, that makes sense. I'm saving $250 a month. I'm gonna spend the next 30 days talking to 10 loan officers that I don't wanna talk to, that I don't wanna deal with, just to try to save $12. And then in that time, it would take me 24 months to recoup that $250 I gave up by trying to save at $12 if rates go down, if I can get what I want. So you kind of throw those things at them and it gives them a different spin in their head. So now instead of you catering to them, you're giving them financial advice or so.
Buy with emotion, justify with logic, right? So you get them emotionally bought in, and then the logic is actually what kind of closes it. Yeah. Do you have a question, Alan?
Yeah, well, just with the script, you know how you go into it saying like, if I can even help you, I'll let you know. If not, point in the right direction. Kind of going along with shopping. Like, what if we're not the first person that they've spoken to, and they go, oh, wire, I can get, a rate over here. So, like, why wouldn't you be able to help me? And they kind of come at you like that. Like, how would you kind of, remap it?
It sounds like you have someone combative already. Then let's figure out why they are. Sounds like you had a bad experience, sir. What's going on? Just hit them with the real question. They'll answer you. Oh, I've been lied to. Oh, this guy had me pay $800 for an appraisal. Loan Depot won't leave me alone. They'll tell you why. If they're combative, it's for a reason.
That's a great point, because if they are combative, then why are they even calling? If you already know you can get this, why don't you take a move on it? So that's a way to kind of call them for what it is. And then they'll say what their reasoning is, and then you just press in on that. So it's actually a good thing that they said that, right? My opinion, what I would say if they say, they came off like, well, I already know I can get this. Say, awesome. We operate a little bit different here because we're direct conduit to the source, right? So the only thing that I can actually put in front of you is what you qualify for. But before I even get there, let me show you what I mean, and then bring them right back into the conversation. So I've already planted seeds of what makes me different, and how we operate, and you know what I mean, and why they need to continue letting me drive. Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Any other questions out there in Plano?
I'll take them off mute.
Questions, Plano? You good?
Yeah.
All right.
Open up every year, huh?
All right, sweet, cool, man. I appreciate you guys' attendance.
How about Kelly? Are you get some more room, or maybe get a yard or some gardening or something? Yard? Okay.
What's that?
All that kind of stuff. I can to my real estate network, and then we'll find that agent who's going to find that perfect house for you. Okay. But first, we have to get you pre-approved.
All right, some guy's on the phone.
Okay, that's someone's phone call.
Yeah, he's on a phone call. Plano, what do you have a question?
Well,
I think she's trying
maybe
to.
all of them.
And then a pre-approval.
All right, I'll hit him up. Hey, if you can hear me, just email me your question. I'll definitely get you the answer, okay? So I appreciate you guys attending. Thank you very much. There's going to be some food for you guys. I believe it's in the kitchen.
Yep. So actually, guys, stop recording. It's actually right outside the wall here. So one slice because we didn't think you're all gonna show up. So guys, one slice.
Bite, give.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you,
Thank you, bro.
Daniel?
Yeah, no problem.